Adrian Scott. Adrian Scott.
Greetings and shalom, I am Adrian Scott and welcome to Truth and Testimony, the broadcast. Continuing the Israel video series, we enter the next round, which is basically our route to Jerusalem and our first time getting to the capital city. And I just wanted to start off by saying I'm going to offer a little bit of explanation as we're going. I do try to let some of the pictures speak for themselves, but I will get in there and offer some explanation when I think that it is warranted or interesting. There were lots of interesting things that did happen. There were times when we were kind of rushing a little bit, so I didn't get pictures and videos of everything. I tried to get some of the important stuff, but I hope that you enjoy what I present here for you today. And so as we pick up, heading out, the first thing we had to do was leave our Airbnb and go catch, I'm not sure exactly what they call it. It's a light rail system in Tel Aviv, but this is a picture of it here. And so we take this to get to basically downtown Tel Aviv, at which point we transfer on to the other train, the big train, and that's the train that actually goes from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. So just a picture here, and you can see that's sweat on my belly there. Sorry about that. But the heat and the humidity were really hitting me hard. I did a lot of perspiring, and I was consuming copious amounts of water. It really surprised me how much water that I was going through, and I was not peeing that often, so I was using it. So this was just me sitting on the train. This is that light transit in town. Oh, Pizza Hut, we had Papa John's. But just wanted to get a little bit of town as we're going through town and see some of the regular, everyday culture of Tel Aviv. So here we are at the main train station waiting to board. One interesting little thing that I did note here was you don't see it in the couple of pictures that I took, but there were a lot of Israeli soldiers, and I'll assume that they were on like a weekend furlough or something. I guess they have a schedule where they have some time on, some time off, and so when they're off, they go and, of course, spend the time with their families and whatnot. But we did see a lot of soldiers waiting for the train, going back between the two, and so that was an interesting little aspect to me. But yeah, platform 4, that's where we were. Now this is on the big train, and just getting a little bit of video footage as we're leaving Tel Aviv. Again, construction just about everywhere you look. It was really jumped out at me. It was very nicely air conditioned on the train. That made it really cool. All said and done, it was not that huge a train ride either. If I remember, it was just about, or just a touch under an hour. So not too terribly bad. But you got to keep in mind, I mean, Israel is just look at a map of the world. Israel is not a large country. I actually, if I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong on this. I should probably verify before I say it, but I'll say it. I think Vancouver Island, where I live, is slightly geographically larger than Israel, than the entire country of Israel. Or they're close. They're close to each other anyways. A little more out in the countryside. Still densely populated. Lots of farmland. You can see that's all farmland right there. The train did make a few stops along the way, not the least of which was Ben Gurion Airport. So that makes for a nice, easy connection. Needless to say, tourism is such a huge industry in Israel. And so another thing you can see, and you see it a little bit in the background there if you look, but there was just a ton of tour buses at all times heading in every direction. It was a very booming thing there for sure. And as a matter of fact, the next video in my series is going to be our bus tour that we took up to the Sea of Galilee. So we ourselves found ourselves on one of those tour buses. Getting a little bit closer to Jerusalem at this point. You can see a bit of a shift in the countryside as we do so. And now this is arrival at Jerusalem. There was something to the effect of like 6 or 7 of these escalators to go from getting off the train up to street level. So well underground for that one. And I know it's kind of crazy, it's kind of goofy, but you have to keep in mind that my background was not a biblical one. I grew up very secular, and one of the things that I was hugely into were zombie movies that dealt with, various zombie apocalypses. And so, of course, the thought going through my head is, if there was a zombie apocalypse, that train system could be a good place to hide. Yeah, I know. This is my very first look at Jerusalem. We just walked out of the train station. As soon as we did, I plunked my bag down, I pulled my camera out, and I just had to start recording that one. And it just stood out to me. Very, very busy. You can see how busy that was. Obviously, I mean, you expect it to be maybe even a little busier in the fact that we're right at the train station. But then, not 2 minutes of walking, and you get this old gutted building, and I don't know if this was being prepared to be torn down or whatever, but it was all fenced off and just sitting there, not in use. And it was that little bit of that moment of old and new kind of blended together. We're walking down the street to get to our Airbnb there, and of course I noticed this little one that stood out to me, which is the Jerusalem Post. Now, that's just interesting to me because the Jerusalem Post is a source for information that I've used for quite a while, amongst other sources. But I like them. I mean, it might not be everyone's cup of tea, but I kind of enjoy the stuff they do. So it was neat to me to see a little bit of that, something that I was familiar with, as we're making our way to our Airbnb. Now, at one point en route again to our Airbnb, we did pause, and I kind of sat down here. Immediately to my left, out of the frame of this photo, was a market, a big tent that was set up as a marketplace. And what they were selling in there was all the stuff that you need for Sukkot. there's some ceremonial stuff that's used for a waving ritual and things that you would say blessings over for Sukkot, and all of those things would be purchased in there. So I'm just kind of sitting outside taking in a little bit of the sights while my friend went inside to get some supplies for us for our Sukkot, because we were also observing that while we were there. And you don't see it, but boy, oh boy, was it busy. It was packed, almost shoulder to shoulder. And it should be noted that I have some real difficulties with crowds, intensely uncomfortable with crowds, just about to a phobic level. So I was going to go in. I wanted to go in and see this with my friend, but once I saw that, it was just like, I can't do that. And he was nice enough. He said, okay, just wait out here. I'll go in. So thanks to him for that one as well. But yeah, so that was one thing I did struggle with, especially, with given that this was heading into Sukkot, that it was very, very crowded everywhere because there was a bunch of extra people. It's already a crowded place, but then you just add all these extra people that have come in from all around the world to participate in this biblical feast. And it just made it that much more crowded. The other thing that's kind of neat about our walk to our Airbnb here is, there's the tram in Jerusalem, but our walk took us right past Old City. So at this point, we weren't going into Old City, but this is kind of us walking past Old City. And I mentioned in my previous video when we had our I Love Bat Yam sign, here's the one in Jerusalem. I love Jerusalem, JLM. And just outside of Old City. So we had, of course, to do our photo opportunity there. I just took a couple of other random shots, knowing that we'd be back in much more detail inside Old City later. But we were just trying to get to our Airbnb at that point. But yeah, there we are. Now, continuing our walk to our Airbnb, what's right in front to the left there, that would be Jaffa Gate or Jaffa Gate, which is an entrance into Old City. There's a few gates that you can enter through. That's one of the big ones. And our Airbnb is kind of off to the right of Old City there. So we're going to be walking all around the outskirts of it around the right. But yeah, so we're walking past this. And of course, this is my first time, as much as everything is the first time. This is my first time seeing Old City. So I had to get a few little extra pictures here. Yeah, pretty cool. A little bit closer shot of Jaffa Gate. This only stood out to me because we didn't actually go here, but to even see a sign, you're there. You're in this biblical place where almost anything you do, anywhere you go has some connection to something that happened in Scripture. And no exception. There's a sign right there indicating, take the next turn off to go to Bethlehem or Beit Lechem, which I believe translates as house of bread. But yeah, if you look at the Hebrew just above that, of course, Hebrew reads from right to left rather than left to right. But yeah, Beit Lechem. Kind of cool. And this is now away from Old City, but heading down the street to our Airbnb. As a matter of fact, that building directly across from us, in center of shot there, the little balcony up on the second floor, that is our Airbnb. That was our apartment right there. Great place. The host there was amazing. We didn't end up staying, but it was not for any fault of that host or anything there. He was phenomenal. This whole district here is a little bit more of an English part of town. There's more, because you have a lot of people performing Aliyah and moving back to Israel that are Jewish, but have grown up in other parts of the world, and they're sort of migrating back to Israel. And this is an area where you get a lot of that presence, where they were not born and raised in Israel, but find their way back. And in a lot of cases, English may be a first language for a bunch of them. So this was more of an English area, according to our host here. He himself, I guess, was born and raised somewhere in, I can't remember exactly where it said in the United States, but moved back to Israel and is now permanently residing in Israel in his apartment here. This is maybe a 15 to 20 minute walk to Old City from his Airbnb here, from his apartment. And we took a walk one night and we're going down and just another Papa John's. But what stood out to me on this one is something you see a huge prevalence of, which again makes sense given the circumstances of everything, is just an absolute ton of scooters. And so you can see all these delivery vehicles sitting out front of this Papa John's are all these little scooters, and they've got these specialty racks put on the back where they stick the pizzas to keep them hot and everything, and they go and do their delivery. So just this whole scooter fleet with these Papa John baskets on the back. All of this is just surreal to me. But yeah, took it around a walk in the evening and had to do that. This was so weird because we're standing here, we're coming down this sidewalk, and this almost looks like someone took two pictures and edited them together. If you draw a line right down the middle, like where that lamppost is, and you got one picture on the left and another picture on the right. But no, this is not an edit. It's just the way these two areas were lit. But it just kind of stood out to me as kind of an interesting thing. And this is Jerusalem at night. Just kind of an interesting visual. This is in that Airbnb. You just saw a couple of pictures back. And there's my friend sitting at our table. There's the couch I spent most of my time sitting on. You can see my little bag of goods and my camera tripod there. And I did get a picture standing out on the deck. So this is looking down at the street view from there. Really nice area. And again, like just a short walk to Old City, which makes it really cool, which is Old City is in that direction. But very cool. Very nice place. Now this is from the first time at Old City. And again, we got up at some ridiculous hour because our sleep schedule was all over the place. And we're like, why don't we go to Old City for sunrise? So, I'd already had a thought about trying to get a time-lapse video of sunrise from Old City. Come to find out, I didn't realize this, that the Mount of Olives is basically right there. So you read about the Mount of Olives, the sermon and all that stuff. You don't realize that it's almost a stone's throw from Old City. It's right there. So what you're seeing in front of you, that's kind of an Arab housing district, but just on the left side of that photo, those are all tombs. That's all burial places, and that is the Mount of Olives. So this still photo, this was part of my attempt at getting that time lapse. I just took a couple of photos and intermixed, is the sun coming up over the Mount of Olives from the Old City. And another picture of the same thing. There's actually, it should be noted that these two pictures were taken on separate days, because the first day that I went, it was quite overcast and there was a lot of cloud cover. So I went back and I said, okay, I have the footage and I can work with that if I need to, but I want to try a second attempt just if I can happen to get a better result. This actually ended up being the still photo from the second attempt, and I think the sun just really came through nicer on this picture. Basically standing in the same place. I think a little bit different, and I framed it a bit differently, but basically in the same place, looking out, Mount of Olives, the Arab district right there, and the sun coming up. This is looking a little bit more to the right and just getting a bit more of that sense of that Arab area. If you carefully, I don't know what kind of quality you may or may not have, or what if the resolution would allow this, but if you can zoom in on that picture at all, you will see the Islamic symbol in like various neon lights and stuff, and the Star of David just interspersed all throughout this area, which was kind of neat, just to see this mixture right there in front of me. It was pretty cool. A little bit more of a direct shot of the Mount of Olives. A slow panorama shot here. What you see first on the left, that's the ramp system going up to the Temple Mount. So just on the other side of that is the Western Wall, or the Wailing Wall as it's also known. And what you're looking over here is part of Ophel Garden. And that little rock formation directly in front right now, below, that's the market. So the money changers and stuff used to be there. way back in the Second Temple times. There's a still shot of the same thing. We would be back inside Ophel Garden later, so this was just standing from an overlook over it on a previous occasion. Still had to get a few shots. These are all excavations. There it is. Welcome to the Western Wall, a remnant of the temple. And of course, with Sukkot being ongoing at this point, if you can see all those people standing there, they're all Orthodox, but the little sticks and stuff, this was the Sukkot symbols, I believe, called etrog and lulav, but it's a palm frond, and there's a citrus fruit. I can't remember the name of it right off my head, top of my head, but this is the part of that waving ceremony. So this is what they're all holding as they wave this and say their prayers and blessings and do all of that. And they set up that booth right there. Is not normally there for that. It was set up for Sukkot. Immediately to my right in this picture is where the actual Western Wall is, which we'll see in just a second here, but had to get that. And that's what all those little things are. So there is the actual Western Wall. I am standing there. I will say that Kevin and I did go down there, and we actually put our hands on the wall, and we did say some prayers and stuff while we did so. Which was one of the most surreal things that I've ever done. So that was extremely cool. I never imagined that I would actually be doing that and have the opportunity to do that. So you can see them waving a little bit there. Little walkway to go down to the wall. And singing and dancing and saying prayers, and they're waving their Sukkot things down there. That walkway again up to the Temple Mount. That's what that ramp on the right is. And directly at the top of that wall is the Temple Mount. As we left the Western Wall, we just kind of started wandering around Old City a little bit, and there's a couple of areas that we passed through, but one of the things we passed was this store where they sold various memorabilia and items and stuff. And so all of these are what they call mezuzahs, and would traditionally be put up on the doorposts of your houses. But these are like the most ornate, fancy looking mezuzahs I'd ever seen. So I had to get a picture of that one. I don't know if they're actually gold, but they certainly look like it. But just cool looking either way. Very cool looking. And this is another thing. So one of the routines with Sukkot is that you would build a sukkah, which is Sukkot is the plural of sukkah, and a sukkah is basically a tent. So it commemorates the time when they were wandering in the wilderness and dwelling in tents. So that's what this is, and you'd see these booths and these tents set up everywhere, and Old City was no exception to that. So this is the Western Wall is just 5-minute walk behind us at this point. But here we are. This is where that shop is, where you just saw the picture of the mezuzahs. That's the shop entrance to the right. But they had the little Sukkot booth or sukkah set up just over their front door with the sign. And just a couple of random shots of different streets in Old City. Again, scooters and motorcycles galore. That is actually a street. It's a road. It has a name. It's not just a sidewalk or something. Pretty packed in there. And this was, not too far from the Western Wall again. In fact, just around the corner from the Temple Institute. Now, this is an area, and you'll see a few other pictures of this in a moment. But for the period of Sukkot. And again, you can see some people off to the right of that little building there. And again, they have those etrog and lulav that they're doing the waving with. But that entire structure right there was filled with Orthodox doing their blessings and everything for Sukkot. And they're all standing out there with their prayer books, doing their thing. And that menorah in the center of the shot, I come to find out later, I didn't realize this at the time. Thankfully, my friend enlightened me on this, but that is the actual menorah that when the third temple is erected, or when it's built, that is the menorah that's going in. That's solid gold, probably a multi-million dollars worth of menorah there. So it's in a glass case, but it's bulletproof glass, and it's pretty hardcore stuff. But that is the actual menorah, which again, I felt like kind of silly that I didn't know that at first, but when I realized that, it was like, wow, okay, so that's something pretty haughty right there. So that would probably explain why they wanted to do blessings and stuff, right? There's a bit of a closer shot of it, but why they wanted to do all their blessings and stuff right there is there's one of those temple artifacts. So one of the areas that was excavated right just around the corner from that is this little area that at one time, now it's covered, but I get the sense that at some point in the past it was not covered, and this was an open marketplace. So what they've done is those, what do they call that? Mosaics, little tile mosaics. So all of these pictures are tile mosaics depicting the different shops that would have been in this outdoor market. So here's each of that was a metalwork store. And I'm going to kind of go through and show most of these booths. So you'll see a quick picture of the mosaic of what the shop was, and then the sign denoting what store it was. So there, that one, and that was the glassware store. So as you see the pictures and videos, that'll kind of let you know what's going on there. But at some point, I do get a picture, which is a scene kind of depicting the overall of the whole market as a whole. And that's kind of cool. It gives you a bit more understanding of what the whole thing would have looked like. The jewelry store. Fabric store. And please feel free, you can always pause on those things to actually read a bit more of the description. I had that in mind when I was taking the photos and setting this up. I know some of this was a little blurry. I was still really learning the Canon M50 at that point, so pardon me if it's not in perfect focus. I am getting better. I think we're coming up to the overall shot here in a moment, which captures a bit more of the big picture of it, as it were. There. So that's the image right here. That would be all of those stalls set in the wall back there are the different markets, and that's what the street would have looked like, and that's kind of that street there. So each of those wall points, you know, could have been like one of those market areas. And you have the remains of the columns there in the middle that you can see in that picture. Those would have been the columns on either side there. These are just some more street scenes. And again, that gentleman right there has got his tallit there, and an Orthodox fella, as there were a lot of them around because of Sukkot. Another street scene, and that's really cool. Like, you see that overhang and everything, that's someone's home. Like, people actually live there. It's not just a historical area. This is an active part of town. And more, you know, someone's doorway right there, and another window, which is very interesting stuff. A little street scene as we're heading away a little bit. This picture is really trippy. So this one is I had to take this one because it's really that I've mentioned a couple times that idea of the old meeting the new. So here you have the corner rampart of the Ottoman wall surrounding Old City, and then right behind it, this modern day parking lot with all these modern vehicles. So old and new right there in this one picture. It just encapsulated it so well. And it just was like that everywhere. It really does get me to think that, you know, the part of the world that I live in Canada and on the west coast of Canada is actually pretty young in the grand scheme of things, that there's these places in the world that have just been around so much longer than anything I've really been around. You know, this is another one of the entryways into and out of Old City. This one is the Zion Gate or Zion Gate. And this probably was the one that Kevin and I used the most as we were wandering in and out of Old City. It was in the direction of our Airbnb. But yeah, had to stop and get that picture. But it's just to think of the people and the legacy of just who wandered through there. The outside of the wall from the Zion Gate as we're heading towards our Airbnb, so walking away from Old City. Now we're on the outside of Old City, but still right at the base of the walls. And there's a bunch of historical stuff and excavations there as well, which you'll see here coming up. But turn around and look, and that is the King David Hotel, which is a well-known location in Jerusalem. So there it is right there, overlooking. If you're at the hotel, you could say you're overlooking Old City. But yeah, that's what that was. Greetings and shalom. This is Adrian Scott. Welcome to Truth and Testimony, the broadcast on this very noisy day on Sukkot in Jerusalem. So a lot of background noise. I'm really hoping this comes through okay. Right behind me there is the King David Hotel. Just thought I'd open up with a little shot of that. But there's a super interesting location here that I just had to share. Maybe a lot of people wouldn't find this one so interesting, but I do. So as I kind of pan around a little bit, you're going to get a little story with this archway here, this walkway, and it leads up to something in particular back there. So, it is believed that that filled-in area right over there was a secret entrance during the time of the Second Temple period under King Herod, and was actually a secret entrance for King Herod. This being a walkway or a ramp that would lead up to that, obviously elements of it missing, but that would effectively be the gist of it right there. And I'm just going to kind of take a walk up here so you can see this. Yeah, the music is one thing, but they got people out here weed whacking bushes as well. So what stood out to me so remarkably, and you know what? Let me get a quick shot of the plaque here. The hidden gate. The Ottoman city wall is sealed, but the steps adjacent to it reveal a secret. They allude to the existence of a gate or postern in the city wall from the time of the Second Temple. Presumably, this gate led to Herod's palace, which was located nearby. This would be the walkway right here. And if you go and look a little closer even, you can see the edges where they've filled in. It would have gone higher and a big archway up there and everything, but they just the Ottomans put the stones in there and fill it up. But this is the remains of the original ramp and steps going up to it. And what stands out so profoundly to me, I'm going to switch back to me here. What stands out so profoundly to me, these stones here. So actually I should back up real quick before I say that. One of the things with any city like Jerusalem, but certainly Jerusalem in this case, is, you know, you might sit there and say, oh, you know, I'm stepping on the very spot where one of the disciples might have walked. Well, probably not, because if they walked right there, it would have been probably 20 or 30 feet further down, because they will just build one level of city on top of another level of city on top of another level. So to see anything revealed
And there'll be another, I'll have some pictures here a little further down where they have what they think is some of the foundation from the first temple period. That's quite remarkable. But obviously what I was getting to was the further down in the structure you go, the older the stone is. So down here is the older stuff, and then as you get higher and higher, you get newer and newer. The main parts of the wall up there were done by the Ottoman Empire, but this part, of course, right here, this part right here being from the Second Temple period, that this is a case where you may not be able to say this all the time. This is a case where King Herod himself, good chance, he would have walked right here, right on this. Maybe there was some pavement on top of it, but right here. And given that's the time period of Yeshua, it is possible one of the disciples may have walked here. It is also possible Yeshua himself may have walked here. He was being transported back and forth between Pilate and Herod when he was being interrogated. This could have been an option. I'm not saying it is, but I just like to think of it as a flight of fancy. But the point is, this is it right here. So where you may not necessarily directly see a lot of area that actually was what was revealed at that time, this is one little chunk that is. And that's what I find so remarkable. So I am taking just a copious amount of pictures and videos, and yeah, just some fascinating stuff around here. And there's going to be a lot more videos that I'll probably produce a little bit better and do a bit more editing on. But this is just something to kind of have a little update for you, and one little piece of history that I found so intriguing and interesting. With that, I think I would like to just kind of wrap up the video. Don't need to drag it on too long right now, but I will say, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, King of the universe. Just, I thank you for the opportunity to be here and witness this, and to be able to share it with others in this modern day of technology. And I just pray blessings on all of you. I wish you have a great day and a great week. Chag Sameach, as we're in holiday mode. And I will see you in the next video. Shalom. Bye for now.
So yeah, a little update. I posted that one separately as an update at the time. I just wanted to include it as part of a retrospective in doing everything. In this area, we're back at looking just outside of Old City, back heading towards our Airbnb, and just a few street shots. You know, again, this is just, I thought this was just cool architecture, different than what I'm used to, and, you know, some scenery. Straight ahead to the left would be our Airbnb, but yeah, continuing down the road there. Now, this is an area that is super interesting. So, come to find out, this is an area that they refer to as First Station. And I guess I don't know a whole lot of details. I'm sure you could look it up and find out some stuff. But First Station used to be an Ottoman train yard, I guess, or train stop. And you'll see coming up here. So right now it's been turned into this kind of open market area. And it's a bit of there's a bunch of amusement rides, and there's gift shops and restaurants and a few other things like that. But it's all painted up very, very colorfully and everything. But you'll see in a couple of the pictures in this section that there's the main sort of walkway or boardwalk that you can do. And that walkway was the rails they've laid over. See a little hair of it there towards the right. But you can see where they laid over where the rails were and turned it into this boardwalk. This fantastic vintage carousel. Thought that was really cool. And that right there. So that walkway to the left, the one on the right with the white lines, that's more modern. But that one on the left, which is the stones, that is the old rail system. And I think those two edges of that were where the tracks used to be. But that was all railway. And now it's been turned into this kind of open, like I said, open park market area called First Station, which is like right in between where our Airbnb was and Old City. So we were passing through that all the time. This is just walking down the street in our street, maybe a block away from our Airbnb. And these sukkahs set up all down the street. Of course, again, we're in the midst of Sukkot at this point. So it was just really neat to see these. And this was capturing a little bit more of the traditional, because the idea would be with various palm fronds and leaves and stuff is what you would make your sukkah from. So some of them were just straight up more modern day tents with canvas tops and everything. But these guys made a bit more of an attempt to go with the leafy fronds and the leaves, tree branches and stuff to put the covering on a restaurant. So you could actually sit out here and have your meal. Just a street shot as we're walking from Old City back to our Airbnb. This was a little overpass over the road. So as the banner there indicated, this would be what they call the upper room that you can go in there. It should be noted that many scholars would say this is not the upper room that Yeshua had his Last Supper with his disciples. But whether it is or isn't, the idea would be that the upper room he would have been in would have been something quite similar to this. And so still, it's absolutely worth noting, and it should just make you dwell on those things and any opportunity you have to look back on and appreciate the sacrifice of our Messiah and the things he did leading up to that should be noted. So whether it's the actual location or not, it's still super cool and just a fantastic piece of history to see this. Some stairs leading down to the, what I will call the lower room. So we're in the upper room, but there's some stairs going down to presumably the lower room. I'm not sure where they went, but I just saw the stairs there inside the room we were in. So it is there. It's gated off. You can see a little bit of that. So you couldn't actually go down there, but that was the funny thought I had. Now, after we had relocated our Airbnb, this is from the balcony of our new Airbnb, which was a little bit further away, maybe about a 40-minute walk or so from Old City. Still not too terrible, very walkable, and actually a very neat walk, because that walk takes you right down. It's like Rodeo Drive in Los Angeles or something. It's a big strip and a big shopping district and very famous Jaffa Street, which leads down to Old City and in fact the Jaffa Gate. So probably hence the name of the street. But yeah, so this was just from the balcony of our new Airbnb, and just interesting. I hadn't really been exposed to city like this since I'd been in downtown Vancouver. So this was different for me. I'm a country boy now living out on Vancouver Island. Now, I admit that this is the goofy part of me. This actually is a bit of Jaffa Street you can see there, and we were going for a walk in the evening. I think, were we on our way back to our Airbnb from Old City? One or the other. We're either heading to or from Old City, but we're going down the street, and they have these little marquees set up, which give you clocks, the date and everything. Near that's a bus station, right? Or the train station, sorry, the tram system. And that's a station right there for it. So the sign's right out there. And I just found this perennially funny because that is the Windows 8 or Windows 10 splash screen for logging on. So they're just using the Windows 10 splash screen with the clock and date. I just thought that was so funny. Yeah. And what was even funnier is not 30 seconds after this, I didn't get a picture of it. I think my friend may have. But there was another one of these across the street, but that one had errored out. So it wasn't on the splash screen. It was on a screen to basically restart the computer. But at the bottom, it still had the watermark for activating their copy of Windows. Please activate your copy of Windows. I don't know why I found that so funny. But it's just one of those random things that I saw, and I had to get a picture of it. Yeah, this is going right down Yaffa Street. If you take a turn off to one of the side streets, you end up going down this little strip. And they just had these blue and white animated lights here with snowflakes on it. And I just thought it was so trippy. Just the whole street scene was really cool. And anyways, that concludes video number 2, which would be round 1 in Jerusalem. The next video in the series will be taking our trip to the Sea of Galilee and some various stops interspersed in that one. So you look forward to that one, and that'll be coming pretty soon. Again, what I'm trying to do is have all of these produced and ready to go, and then I can just upload them, bang, 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 and get them all up close together. So you won't have to wait long for the next one. And on that note, I would just leave off the video by asking, if you can, please give the video a like, share. If you have not done so, subscribe. And if you do subscribe, hit that notification bell so that you are notified when those videos do release and any other videos that Ray and I do. And in the meantime, I will wish you all blessings in the name of our Messiah, Yeshua, Jesus, and say shalom and bye for now.
You've been watching Truth and Testimony, the broadcast. If you have a comment, please leave it on the bottom of this video or email us at truthandtestimonyemail@gmail.com. Again, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Truth and Testimony, the broadcast is not affiliated with Truth and Testimony magazine.